Conservative new media viewers, LA Lakers fans around the world, JLin fans around the world. What is up? It's me, PFE, Paul F. Villarreal, the NBA expert. We are here to discuss in the long video format the Lakers' 94-85 defeat tonight to the Utah Jazz in Salt Lake City, Utah. Now, we made a short video about this game, so if you want to check that out first, or you want to check that out now and then watch the long video later, feel free to do that. You can go to our channel and you will see the short video as well. It'll be the last video that was put up before this long video. Okay, the Lakers dropped to 12-29 with the loss, and the Jazz improved to 14-26 with the win. Quick stats overview. Gordon Hayward for the Jazz, 31 points, 3 rebounds, 7 assists. Trey Burke, the point guard, 20 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. Derek Favors, 18 points, 10 rebounds. The Lakers were led by Swaggy P with 23 points off the bench. Swaggy had found his shot again, which is good to see. He shot 4 of 9, which is much better than what he's been shooting recently, including 2 of 4 from the three-point line. Jordan Hill, 16 points, 11 rebounds. Jeremy had, 6 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. He played 30 minutes, shot 3 of 10 from the field, including 0 of 1 from three-point range. No free throw attempts. 2 steals, 0 block shots, 3 turnovers, and his plus-minus was a minus 16, which was, in fact, the worst on the team. What happened in the game was that Utah started strong. They led by 5 points after the first quarter. LA cut that lead to just 1 point at halftime. Then Utah made a surge in the third quarter. They outscored LA by 6 points in the third quarter, so they were up by 7 points going into the fourth. The Lakers really were reeling midway and later through the third quarter because Gordon Hayward led a charge and a run against LA, and they really didn't have an answer for him at that point in time. Hayward is now a max contract player. There was a lot of discussion about whether he earned that or deserves that, but I think that he is getting clearer and clearer that he is that level of player. He's not a perfect player, but he's a very good player, and he's only going to improve as he is still a young player. The Jazz won the fourth quarter by 2 points as well. They kind of held the Lakers off, although LA did make some runs in the fourth quarter, and they secured the win. Now, just one other quick note, on the overview about the game. The Lakers were playing the second game in 2 days. So they played last night, of course, on ESPN television, TNT television here in the USA. That was an emotional game against LeBron and the Cavaliers. They had to fly out after the game, arrive in Utah. They probably didn't get a ton of sleep. And they were playing in Salt Lake City, which is at altitude. I believe Salt Lake City is at least 4,000 feet above sea level, and I think it's closer to 5,000 feet. So you have a back-to-back situation. You're tired, you're flying out, you're on the road, and you're playing on altitude against a team that is used to the altitude because that's their home arena. I said on Twitter after the game that Denver and Utah on a back-to-back are probably the 2 most difficult places to play on the second night of a road back-to-back. So this is kind of like a schedule loss for the Lakers, meaning when the schedule comes out and you look at it, it's like, yeah, we're going to lose that game just because of how the scheduling is set up. So you have to consider all those factors, as well as Kobe Bryant and Ronnie Price did not play in this game. So the Lakers were in a tough position coming into this game, and credit to the Jazz, they took advantage of that. Okay, let's talk about what the setup was for the game heading into it. Byron Scott was commenting on the toughness of Ronnie Price and JLin before the game, according to a tweet that I saw from Mark Medina. I think it was before the game. And he was asked something like, I don't know, maybe something like, is Ronnie tougher than Jeremy, or something like this? And he said, look, you are what you are, and not saying that Jeremy is soft, but Ronnie's a really tough guy. Look, well, the first thing I said, and when I saw this on Twitter, and I'll say it again now, is that JLin has played every single game for the Lakers this year. He's played all 41 games, and I believe he's one of only 3 players on the roster who hasn't missed any time at all. That takes toughness. It's not that Jeremy hasn't had any dings or been hurt at all. I'm not saying Ronnie isn't tough, but it does take a certain amount of physical and mental toughness to do that. Now, this issue about Jeremy and how tough is he and how soft is he, or Charmin, all this has come up many times before with Jeremy. It came up repeatedly in Houston, and the code word for it in Houston, in terms of what Coach Kevin McHale would say about Jeremy, was competitiveness. You know, Patrick Beverley's really competitive, meaning that Jeremy's not as competitive. And that's kind of this same toughness argument. Look, we've discussed this many times about JLin on this channel, this particular issue. Jeremy is physically and mentally tough. If he was not mentally tough, he would not be in the NBA currently, given all of the oversights and slights that he's received in his basketball career, all the way up from little leagues to through college and into the NBA. And he's still receiving them today, as most of his fans know. So you have to be mentally tough to do that. Jeremy is physically tough. He's played through the I think that meniscus tear that he had repaired during his time in New York. I think that was a chronic tear, meaning that it was a repetitive tear. He probably had it repeatedly, or he had it there for some time. Man, if you have torn cartilage, that doesn't feel very good. Jeremy gets knocked on the ground, or used to get knocked on the ground, as much as any player you would see in the NBA. He would always take hard hits. If you guys remember, the Lin fans, you'll remember Clyde Drexler, our favorite announcer, that's sarcasm, of course, would say Jeremy needs to learn how to fall. Why? Because he's always getting knocked down like he's a boxer. So that takes physical toughness. What Byron Scott is talking about it here, in my opinion, he's talking about the kind of mano-a-mano, man-to-man nature of the NBA, or of any sport. In other words, you have to take it personally when your guy is going at you. So if Jeremy is being isolated on defense by the opponent, you got to get upset about that, or you've got to react to it. You don't have to get upset, but you got to take it on, and in some way. You don't have to be stupid. You don't have to be Patrick Beverley and get into shoving matches or yelling at people or whatever. You don't need to do that. You just need to find a way to be comfortable with answering that challenge, particularly on defense. On offense, too. This is where you see guys, and they'll have their own little one-on-one battles within the game. It's kind of like LeBron versus Kobe down the stretch of last night's game. Kobe's very competitive. So is LeBron. So you got to be able to go with that. And Jeremy's not he's not completely wired that way. And that's not a bad thing. This is one area of his life. But, and I've seen this before. I mean, we've talked about this. We've talked about LeBron and his mental challenges with the game. The guy that comes to mind for me when I think about this as regards Jeremy is David Robinson, the Hall of Fame center, who was one of the most physically gifted players who ever played in the NBA. Just absolute athletic freak. But David Robinson was a Christian, as Jeremy is. And so David was not into trash talking, profanity. He didn't want to hate his opponent and this type of thing. And there are many people who feel that if David had been a little nastier of a person, he would have done better. He would have performed better. He would have won more titles, although he won 2 or 3 rings. It's not like he didn't win anything. This is what Byron's talking about here. It's kind of like almost having a chip on your shoulder. Now, again, Jeremy does have a chip on his shoulder from being overlooked and passed over and not drafted and stuff. But he doesn't have necessarily the, okay, I'm going to destroy you type of a chip on his shoulder. He doesn't see the opponent as like an enemy. Whereas some of the guys, like maybe Ronnie, I think Ronnie is a little bit more like that than Jeremy is. Now, I'm not saying Ronnie's a bad guy or anything. It's just when he's on the court, he's going to go at you, including on defense. So that's what Byron means. And the truth is, Jeremy could use a little bit more of that for himself. The challenge is, how do you do that when you are a faithful, religious person who is kind and generally good-natured and intelligent, which is what Jeremy is, and which is very similar to David Robinson. Not only was David Robinson religious and nice, he was extremely smart. He's a very intelligent guy. So it just didn't, like, he didn't want to be gangster man to just kind of, make a parody of it. Jeremy doesn't want to be like that. He doesn't want to be the guy at the playground barking at everybody and just getting everybody's face. It's just not his personality. And Byron basically said that. You are who you are. And what he meant by that was, yeah, the personality you have. It's just something Jeremy's got to work at. Some guys have that more than others. Another example of that is Bill Laimbeer. Bill Laimbeer, who played for the Detroit Pistons and won 2 titles with them, I believe. Bill Laimbeer came from a very wealthy background. He's a white guy. He's, upper class or whatever like that. But Bill Laimbeer was about as nasty as you could imagine. He would fight with anybody. He was a pest. He was annoying. And he didn't have to be. But that's the way that he was. Larry Bird was a very edgy type of a guy, even though he came from the country. So it's part of it's just personality. Part of it is culture in terms of, being religious and faithful and wanting to be nice to people rather than not nice to them. Jeremy's worked on this more and more. Has developed more of the kind of what I call the get back mentality. Okay, you're coming at me, I'm going to go back at you. I'm going to get my get back against you. I would like to see Jeremy become a little bit more engaged defensively in that mode. And I've said this before, and a lot of times people will make fun of or pick at Beverly or Ronnie Price. Like they're waving their arms and doing all the stuff on defense, but it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't do anything. A lot of times that's true. On the other hand, you as the defender want to take the fight to the offensive player. You want to be the one bringing it to the offensive player. And sometimes that means waving your hands and doing little things to agitate the offensive player. You don't want to sit and wait for the offensive player to engage you, because then you're reacting to them. You want them to react to you. And any good defender, pretty much any really good defender, man-to-man, does that. They will bother the offensive player. Sometimes they'll bother them even before they have the ball. They'll be physical. They'll body them up. They'll tug on the jersey, stuff like this. Jeremy could use a little bit more of that in him. And I think Ronnie does have more of that nature to him than Jeremy does. So, look, just work at it. And look, Kobe talked about this earlier in the season. He talked about Jeremy. Jeremy's got the physical abilities, the size, and the strength to be able to be that type of defender. He just got to work on being like that. So, okay, work at it. And this also gives us insight into why Ronnie is Byron's guy. Just like Kevin McHale, some people like the edgy, rough, on the edges type of a guy. Maybe more like Beverly is, or more like Price is, as compared with the nicer guy in Jeremy, particularly defensive-oriented coaches. So and that's where Byron's coming from, and that's probably why he plays Price more minutes. As I mentioned before, Kobe was out of the game for rest. Ronnie was out of the game because I guess he banged up his elbow. I did not know that before the game. I did not get to see the pregame stuff right before the game, so I didn't know that. Somebody had to tell me that later. I guess apparently Ronnie had an MRI on his elbow, and it came back clean, like nothing, no structural damage, so that's good. Finally, before I get into some of the quarter-by-quarter discussion, I want to say that I watched the game on the Utah feed. So, watch the game on the Utah feed. Why? Because I didn't want to listen to Stu Lance talk about Jeremy, as I know some of you do that already. To be honest with you, I watched the majority of the game muted, which a lot of times I like to watch the game with no sound on, because then I have my own thoughts on the game rather than what's being told to me by the announcers. I did hear that the Utah analyst, who is Matt Harpring, who's a former player, was dissing Jeremy, saying something to the effect of Jeremy had his 15 minutes of fame with Linsanity, blah, 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 blah. Harpring is, he's kind of a tough guy himself. He comes from, obviously he played in the NBA. He was a good player, not a great player, but a good, solid role player type of guy. Harpring came from a football background, so he's kind of a, physically tough guy. Just, he's the type of guy he'll take shots at people. Like he kind of a sarcastic, kind of dish you a little bit. That's because, that's kind of the tough guy image or whatever. And so, whatever. I mean, that's just who he is. I guess he had that to say about Jeremy, so whatever. Okay, let's discuss the game quarter by quarter. Now, because Ronnie did miss the game, that meant Jeremy got the start. Just overall in Jeremy's performance, he obviously didn't shoot the ball that well in terms of 3 out of 10. He did have 2 steals, which showed he was being active on defense, which is good to see. And he did have 3 turnovers. The first 2 turnovers, I'll discuss in a minute, came very early in the game. And there were a lot of people upset about it on Twitter, including me. It's like, oh, no, not this. Come on, don't do this. But this is typical for Jeremy. When he starts, when he's given an opportunity, sometimes he'll get a little too pumped up. And so he'll kind of have a burst of turnovers quick. And then for the rest of the game, he won't have any turnovers. That's essentially what happened in this game, except there was, 1 turnover by him a little bit later on. I did not see the first 2 turnovers, so I can't really completely comment on them. But I heard they weren't good. And I'm not surprised. Covering JLin now for several years, he does have these little turnover bundles, is what we call them, a couple turnovers in a short period of time. I thought that Jeremy was not quite in sync with the team or with what he wanted to do in the first half, particularly in the first quarter. I thought he was much better in the second half. I thought he was better in the second quarter. So, it's just he came out, it was a little pumped up, a little too amped up, and then he settled in well. So he did a lot of good things in this game, even though that doesn't show up in the statistics. It looks like he was terrible in this game. He didn't shoot well. He had 3 turnovers and only 3 assists. So 1-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio, which doesn't look very good. But he did some good things in this game. One of the things he did best was he ran the team pretty well. He got the team into the offense more so than I think anybody else was doing on the team. And I'm not saying it was perfect, but this was kind of a ragtag, sloppy game. And I think Jeremy did what he could to kind of take some control of it to the extent that he was able to. Jeremy's defense was okay. He did have the 2 steals. He was all right. He had some very good defensive moments, but overall I would say it was kind of average. He had some moments where he didn't look that great. And so that's kind of what my overall feelings on him were. But I do like that he stayed focused. He competed very hard in the game. He put a lot of effort out in this game, particularly for a team coming off of a back-to-back and playing in the circumstances that they were in the altitude in Utah. So he was focused. He was trying to win. He was trying to make smart plays. He didn't give up, and he stayed with it. So I like that and what I saw from him tonight. Okay, let's go through some selected quarter-by-quarters here. Yeah, early in the first, Jeremy had 2 turnovers quickly. And like I said, I didn't see either one of them. So within the first 4 minutes of the game, Jeremy already had 2 turnovers. One was Joe Ingles, who was, I believe, the shooting guard for Utah, stole the ball from Jeremy right off the opening tip. What that means is you have that jump ball in the middle of the court to start the game. Apparently, the Lakers won the tip. The ball went to Jeremy, and I guess he dribbled it across the court, and Joe Ingles stole it from him. So that happened right off the bat. And then, soon after that, Jeremy passed the ball into the post area, to the paint area, to, I don't know who it was for. Maybe it was for Jordan Hill. Maybe it was for Ed Davis. And that pass was stolen by the center Cantor. So I would imagine maybe the pass was for Jordan Hill because I would imagine Cantor was guarding him. So, like I said, not the best start in the history of basketball, but then he got much more settled down. And then I made a note after those 2 turnovers that says, value the bleeping ball more. So I wasn't happy with Jeremy early. And I know a number of Jeremy's fans on Twitter weren't happy with me because I was being critical of Jeremy. Look, there's a fine line that we all have to draw as JLin fans, and I have to draw as an observer and an analyst. I can't coddle Jeremy. I can't refuse to criticize Jeremy. I have to point things out about Jeremy that I would point out about another player. In other words, look, if Kobe started the game with 2 turnovers quickly, then I would be like, hey, Kobe, value the bleeping ball more. You really need to do that. So I'm just trying to be the same with Jeremy the way I'd be with anybody else. And that's true. On the other hand, I know people are telling me, look, Jeremy's not used to starting. He doesn't have chemistry with the first unit, etc. That is also true. So I don't think anybody's really wrong here. It's just we're all going to have our own rhythm, our own ups and downs of when we're going to give Jeremy more of kind of the pass, the free pass on things, and when we're going to get upset about certain things. And my curve went to upset early in this game. And I wasn't the only one. Alex CD was like, look, Paul, he's blowing his chance. This is his chance to show Byron he's ready to start, but he's got to stop turning the ball over more. And that's exactly how I felt. It's at some point you want to see Jeremy not do this and be better with this. Now, he has improved. We've talked about his turnovers and turnover statistics all year. This is one of his better years, or one of his best years. At times, it's been his best year. We just want to see him be what he can be. And that's where everybody's coming from, whether it's my being critical of him or whether it's someone else saying, hey, you got to go easier on him. Everybody wants the same thing, which is to maximize Jeremy and his potential. Okay, then I thought that JLin blocked Ellis Kanter under the basket. It looked like he got a block the same way that he got a block he got a couple blocks the other night, and I can't remember the game right now. He had 2 blocks in that game against centers for the opposing team. It looked like he got a block against Ellis Kanter, but they didn't give him one. And I will say that the scorekeepers for this game tonight, the people who record the statistics officially, they weren't very kind to JLin. There were a couple of plays where he could have gotten assist, but they didn't give it to him. So this was not they weren't being particularly friendly to JLin, or maybe they weren't like that for any of the Lakers. I'm not sure. Moving on to the middle of the first, Jeremy had a nice assist to Ed Davis for an and-one hoop under the basket. So Jeremy got him the ball, Ed went up, scored the layup, and he was fouled. That was a nice play, and that made the score 10-9 for Utah after Ed successfully converted the free throw attempt. Then I put Jordan Hill is bringing the ball up and not giving it to Jeremy. Then he gave the ball, did Jordan Hill, to Wayne Ellington and not to Jeremy. What the heck? Then Jordan Hill was doing an ISO play where Jordan Hill, who was a post player, started from about the free throw line area and just dribbled into the paint. My guess with this is that he was not happy with Jeremy's early turnovers. Or he didn't feel like Jeremy was running things properly or whatever, so he just decided, did Jordan, that he was going to take matters into his own hand. Now, as critical as I was of Jeremy for the turnovers, I was really unhappy with Jordan for doing that. And a number of Lin fans on Twitter said, hey, why are they're freezing out Jeremy. They're not letting him run the offense. And you're right. They were freezing him out and not letting him run the offense early in this game and through the middle of the first quarter as well. So I don't like that. That's not the way to fix it. You've got to trust your point guard. You've got to trust your teammates, or else you're not going to do well in almost all circumstances. So it did get better later in the game, but it's like, dude, Jordan literally, like, Jordan got a defensive rebound, and Jeremy was there like, hey, give me the ball. And Jordan didn't give him the ball, and I think he dribbled it over half court himself, which Jordan Hill almost never does that. So I was like, dude, come on. You can't do that. He probably just thought Jeremy was too amped up, but still, I didn't like that. Okay, then Trey Burke hit a jumper over Jeremy, so it was kind of tough defense. Jeremy played a pretty good possession, and he contested the shot, but Trey hit the basket over him. Then I put near turnover off a pick and roll with Ed Davis going right to left, I believe. So I think they were on the right side of the court, and Ed had set the pick and was rolling down the left side of the paint. Jeremy threw a little pocket pass, trying to bounce the ball into Ed and let him go up for a layup, but it was almost a turnover. So it was like, whoa. Slow down. Again, this is a tendency with Jeremy, and it's a tendency for many younger or inexperienced players. They'll try to do a little too much. They'll try to make passes that aren't really there. They'll try to make shots that they can't really hit, like layups and stuff. You see this with Jordan Clarkson all the time. he'll just kind of be like flying around, and even if it's not productive. Jeremy is relatively inexperienced, but he's getting to the point in his career where he wants to get beyond these mistakes. This is what Kobe was referring to early in the season. This is kind of the boneheaded thing, but it's more what Kobe said when he remarked that he couldn't tell Jeremy anything, just that Jeremy had to go through it. You have to do it and learn it and then get beyond it, and that's how you get through it. But at some point, you want to move past it. And so the sooner that Jeremy can get away from this, the better off he's going to be. And look, some players never get beyond this stage, and that's why they're not successful. So Jeremy just wants to continue to work on this and get beyond the learning curve as quickly as he can, just for his own success. Okay, then I put Jordan Hill, another crazy ISO, because he doesn't trust JLin to run the offense, or he just doesn't trust the offense, period. It's like, again, you can't function like that. Now, this was Lakers tired, Lakers without Kobe, Lakers without Ronnie, so these are the other point guards. Jordan's used to playing with those guys as his point guard, but you can't do that. You can't diss your teammate like that. Not only does it look bad, you won't win. You won't win. Basketball, yes, there are ISOs, and you can have players ISO all game, and you'll win that way. But in the modern NBA, you can't really play that way. You must communicate well with your teammates, and you must have trust in your teammates, or you're not going to win very many games. Okay, then Jeremy had a nice play on defense where he stopped Trey Burke on a layup attempt in transition. Very nice play by Jeremy, and it was a pretty bad miss by Trey. Okay, then I put, again, and I was still frustrated with Jeremy here, and this was the middle of the first as well. I put Jeremy's a little too wild here. I'm not seeing enough improvement here. And this is kind of where we get into the over-dribbling of Stu Lance, or the 29 points, 9 turnovers of McHale. Don't try to do too much. Don't try to do too much. What Jeremy's doing, what he's trying to do in a good way, is he's trying to do Linsanity or Mike D'Antoni offense, which is, I'm the point guard, and everything's going to flow from me. I'm going to drive, and then I make the decision, and we go from there. Either I'm shooting the ball, or I'm going to draw defenders, and I'm going to pass the ball out. Well, that's, number one, that's not Byron Scott's system. So you have to adjust that to a different, you have to play to the system now. Number two, you don't have to take the entire burden on for yourself. Where I think a lot of times Jeremy really feels like he's got to do everything. It's like when he went to Houston and he said, I'm going to be the savior of Houston basketball. It was like it was all on his shoulders. We have 4 teammates on the court with you when you're playing. So just swing the ball, move the ball, especially when he starts getting a little too, when his mind's racing a little too quick and he's rushing his movements. Swing the ball. Calm down a little bit and get into the flow of the game. Which, again, to be fair to Jordan Hill, it's probably what Jordan was thinking when he was icing Jeremy out, but still, that might not be the best way to accomplish the goal. Then, still middle of the first, Jeremy had a steal. Gordon Hayward tried to make a pass, and Jeremy anticipated and got the steal. That was a terrific play. Then, moving on to late into the first, Jordan Clarkson came in for Jeremy with 4 minutes left to play. And the score at that point in time was, I believe, 18-11 for Utah. So, okay. So Utah went on. They, as I mentioned earlier, they're up 5 points at the end of the quarter. The second unit for the Lakers did a pretty good job of cutting the lead down, which we've all seen that the starters for the Lakers haven't done well this year, and unfortunately, Jeremy kind of continued the trend for the first unit tonight. Moving on to early in the second, Clarkson had some nice plays here. He really did. You could really see some of his potential. He had a excellent one-on-one move, which he scored off of. I want to say it's on the left-hand side of the court. Then I put Super Clarkson off ball cut, gets the ball, and goes hard to the rim. What I liked on this play that Jordan did, again, Jordan's friends with Jeremy. Jordan's a quarter Filipino or whatever he is, on his mom's side or something. So it's, again, we don't want to be Jordan versus Jeremy and everything, but Jordan, he's got a tremendous amount of athletic ability. He's tall, he's bigger than Jeremy is, and he's an exciting young player. What I like that Jordan did on this play was he moved without the ball. And it's something that's important in basketball in general, and it's important in Bayern's offense. Bayern's offense is designed where you're supposed to get a pretty good amount of movement away from the ball, but it doesn't always work that way. The players aren't always executing it in this. Now, this might have been a simple play, like it might have just been a simple back cut that Jordan executed, which is just running behind your man, but I still liked it. It will help the team if they would execute more movement when they don't have the ball in their hands. So it was a nice play by Jordan there. And then I put a note, and again, this is in my still critical of Jeremy mode. I put, Jeremy must refine his style and play smarter, or else he's going to lose minutes to Jordan Clarkson. So you've heard people, everybody, just normal Lakers fans, anybody but Jeremy people, Lin doubters, saying, well, Ronnie's not very good, so start Jordan Clarkson. Look, to be completely honest with you, if Jordan, the way that this game was going on early, the first, 12, 15 minutes of the game, 16 minutes of the game, if Jeremy plays the way he was playing early on, and if Jordan plays the way he was playing, Jordan is going to get minutes over Jeremy, particularly for a coach like Byron Scott. And that's the truth. That's the reality. Because Jordan was playing well and Jeremy was having a little bit of a tougher time. So we don't want it to be competition and this one guy to push Jeremy up, but it is a competition. So you have to perform so that you are valued and that you get the minutes that you want to get. And so I was early on in this, I was like, oh man, he's going to start losing minutes to Jordan, which as the season goes on, because Jordan is a rookie, there will be plenty of fans who want to see him play because you're not going to make the playoffs. So you might as well play the young guys and see what they can do. So Jeremy's going to have to, you have to fight for your minutes, and you have to know your coach. If your coach likes the tough guy, Ronnie Price, then you got to be tough. If Jordan's playing a little better than you, then you got to play better. And that's just what it is, regardless of what I say or what anybody thinks. The NBA is not it's not a league to nurture people in a lot of ways, whether that's good or bad. It's bottom line business. You got to produce. If you don't produce, then they're going to get somebody else. So that's just being realistic. And then I put Jordan playing good defense. He was playing good defense. He was being aggressive, and it was good to see. Then Jordan had a nice athletic move in transition where he kind of, I believe he got his defender to commit to him, and then he dished the ball off to Tarek Black for a dunk. It was a really nice play. This is some of the best minutes that Jordan Clarkson played all year. And I got to give him credit for that. I'm happy for him. Like I said, it's nothing to do with Jeremy, but I'm just happy for him. He seems like a good guy. I think he's gone through some real difficult times recently. with his family, and good for him. I hope he does well. He certainly has the talent to do well in the NBA in terms of the physical ability. Okay. Then I noted that Nick Young started out this game 1 for 4. So he was looking like he was going to struggle again. Well, Nick ended up the game 4 of 9. So he made 3 of his final 5 shots, which is 60%, and that's pretty good. So I'm happy for Nick. I said on Twitter probably the best thing out of this game was that Nick broke out of a shooting slump. And I would add to that Jordan Clarkson looked good. So, great. Okay. Then, moving on to the middle of the second, then Jordan himself got a little wild. He almost had a turnover on a drive and dish to Carlos Boozer. And then right after that play, then Byron put Jeremy back in. So this is kind of like hot stock, cold stock Kevin McHale. Okay, you're going to play for a while, then when you get a little out of control, I'm going to take you out. And then when I put in the other player that I took you out for, once he gets a little out of control, then I'm going to take him out and put you back in. And this is pretty much what Byron Scott seemed to be doing here. And I have no problem with that. What you want for Jeremy, what we want, is for him to iron out the irregularities in his game. So you have fewer and fewer of these moments where you get a little out of control or you make a turnover that you could have avoided. And he's getting there. He is getting there. He just needs to keep working at it and keep getting experience, and eventually it will click. And then he'll get to a different level. And he's moving towards that. And he actually showed a really good development in his improvement later in the game on that regard, and I'll talk about that when we get there. Okay, then I put bad defense. The Utah ran a pick and roll with Jeremy's man and Carlos Boozer's man. And it was tough because Jeremy's man, who I believe was Burke, but it could have been the backup point guard, beat Jeremy to the spot. And so what it happened then was Carlos had to come up and help on Jeremy's man, and so it left Carlos's man wide open. This is the reason why. Now, if it was a pick and roll, if Jeremy was screened off, well, it's going to happen. But the reason why the pick and roll is used so much is because if it's done properly, it almost always will give the offense an advantage. You will get a situation that's favorable for the offense if you run it properly. And that's kind of what happened here, but to be completely frank, thought Jeremy could have played better defense initially on his man, and that would have made it easier for Carlos to have played his end of the bargain on that particular play. Okay, then Jeremy missed a reverse layup. He went from right to left, finished on the left-hand side of the basket. Nice little move. He got hit, and he wanted a foul. He clearly wanted a foul, but he did not get it. It wasn't a terrible call, but it's certainly a call, and it's certainly a situation where Jeremy was looking for the foul, and he did not receive it. Okay, then Jeremy, I believe he did not. He was hit in transition. So he was running the fast break on the right side of the court. And he seemed to be clearly hit. I mean, this was much more blatant foul, in my opinion. And he still didn't get the call. And they charged him with a missed shot, even though I thought he absolutely got bumped with the body and maybe with the hand as well. I went to Twitter. I'm like, there are 2 plays in the last few minutes where Jeremy should have gotten calls. And of those 2, the one I can see letting go, but the second one, they definitely should have called a foul on that play. And I really don't know what the referee was seeing on that play, except that perhaps in the referee's mind, they're thinking, look, these are two teams that aren't very good. We're just going to let them play. We're not going to call a bunch of fouls in this game. We're just going to get the game over with. Stuff like that does happen. It shouldn't happen, but it does happen. And there are certain officiating crews who are more like that than other ones. Some officiating crews, meaning like the complete set of officials in that game, whatever it is, three officials, I think 3 refs on the court, and maybe there's like an alternate ref or whatever. Some officiating crews love to call fouls. They'll just call tons and tons of fouls, and so it slows the game down. Other officiating crews don't call as many fouls. And some crews, they have a game between 2 scrub teams. They're just not going to call a lot of fouls. It's the same thing in any sport. If you watch American football in the National Football League, there are certain officiating teams or groups of officials. When they work together, you know there's going to be 100 penalties called because that's the way it is. Tonight's crew, and I don't remember exactly who it was. I have to look over the names. They weren't calling a lot. There were certain things that just were going to let him go. And that's, I think, where Jeremy ended up in those 2 particular plays. Okay, then I said, Jeremy can't always be trailing on defense. Jeremy's biggest weakness on defense is being beaten off the dribble. And he is good at recovering from it, but as much as he can, he wants to work on avoiding that. One way you avoid that is be more physical. Look for charges. Try to beat your man to the spot before he starts dribbling so that you can kind of, you can create what a charge or what looks like a charge. And this is a thing where you can be forcing the offensive player to react to you rather than you react to them. Because I said it, and I know people hate me to say this about Jeremy's lateral quickness. I'm not saying he's not quick side to side. It's just Jeremy's quicker, I'm sure, than 99% of the general population in terms of lateral quickness. What we're measuring his lateral quickness against is everybody else in the NBA, particularly people that he has to guard that are point guards or shooting guards. Some of those guys are quicker than Jeremy is with their movements. And relative to some of those guys, Jeremy's lateral quickness isn't as good. There are things Jeremy's better at than other guys, which is his straight-ahead running speed. He's quicker than almost anybody in the league at that. But with the side-to-side movements, he's not as quick, which means you gotta use your brain. You've got to play position defense. You've got to anticipate where your man is. Because if you're constantly getting beaten off the dribble, or your man's getting a step on you time after time, it does put pressure on the team defense. And it does make it harder for you. And if you're playing for somebody like Byron, you're not going to get as many minutes. So it's just something he's to keep working on. And to Jeremy's credit, he works on this all the time. Every summer, he's always working on his defense. So good. Then I put a bogus and 1 foul called against JLin guarding Gordon Hayward on the break. I thought that Jeremy cleanly challenged Gordon Hayward's shot, but he was called for a foul, which Jeremy wasn't really happy about. Okay. Then I put Jeremy not getting the offense in a flow. And so this is the second quarter. The first half wasn't his best half. The first quarter was his worst quarter in terms of this. He was better in the second quarter, but it still wasn't where we wanted things to be. Okay? This would get a much better in the second half, though, and that's good. Then Jeremy missed his 3rd field goal of the game. Still middle of the second. He shot the ball from about the free throw line left extended, and it was off. And at this point I said, Jeremy's frustrated. He looked frustrated when he took that shot. Like, I'm not getting any calls. They're not calling things for me when I'm on offense, and they're calling me for everything when I'm on defense. And he just looked on that shot just like, well, screw it. I'm not going to drive then. I'm just going to take a shot because hopefully I won't get fouled, and they're not going to call it anyway. So, okay, here's a shot. That's what it looked like. And if I were him, I probably would have been pretty frustrated myself. And you just have to work through that. Again, as you develop and mature as a player, you want less and less of that. Just kind of try to play steady. Moving on to late into the second. Then Jeremy made a pass to Jordan Hill, where Jordan then did a quick little post move and scored the ball. That's something that would have been credited as an assist by a different scorekeeper. I'm not saying that it absolutely should have been, but it would have been maybe by the Lakers scorekeeper. Now, I think the way it works with if you get an assist on a low post move like that is if the player makes his own move, then you don't get an assist. And to be fair, Jordan Hill did make his own move. But the concept of an assist is that you put the player in a position of advantage to score that they would not have been in if you would not have given them the pass. I thought that Jeremy did that. The pass was such that it set Jordan up to make his move. So I thought he should have gotten an assist on that, but again, he was not given it. Then I made a note, the game is like a pickup game. In other words, the game just didn't have a lot of structure to it at this point in time. It was just kind of free-flowing, like something you'd see down at the playground. It was scattered. The refs aren't calling anything. It was just kind of like, oh, let's get the game over with. And that's the way it was. The Lakers, you understand it. They're tired. They're not playing for anything except for their own livelihoods and their own performances, but the Lakers aren't contending for a playoff spot, neither is Utah. So this game kind of just seemed like, let's just play pickup basketball. That's what it looked like. Then I put again, Jeremy is putting his big man in tough spots on defense. Again, he's getting beaten off the dribble a little too easily here. So like I said, the first half of this game, I was in critical of Jeremy mode, but he deserved it. He wasn't playing that great at this point in time, and that's just objectively the truth. Okay, but then Jeremy had a nice assist for a foul to Wayne Ellington on the break. And we mentioned on Twitter the other day Joey Ramirez, who is a writer is a contributor for Lakers.com. I believe that Joey, along with another individual whose name I don't remember right now, they provide content for the site, and they also contribute content in Spanish. So I think Joey and this other man are both bilingual. And so it's one of the things Joey helps out with. And one thing I like with Joey, in addition to he wrote a great article about Jeremy Lin that we pointed out, and he mentioned Lin's defensive rating in one of the games and how good it was, is he will write and note stuff like this, like an assist for a foul. A lot of writers will not do that. They don't do that. And so he'll mention things like, yeah, it would have been an assist, but he was fouled. He'll mention things like blown assist. So that's really good. So I like Joey. I like his work. He's doing a good job. So if you have the chance, check him out. He's on Twitter. I think his Twitter handle is Joey A. Ramirez, I believe is his middle initial. And he's doing good work. So if you're a Jeremy Lin fan or just a Lakers fan that wants some good analysis and a kind of a thorough breakdown, I would tell you to check out his stuff. He's doing better work than a lot of people that don't do it as sophisticated as he's doing it. So, yeah, go for it. Check him out. Okay, then I put Wes Johnson did not pass to Jeremy Lin, and he was instead trying to pass the ball to a post. This wasn't a complete freeze out. It was annoying to watch, but it was kind of like Wes had two options. Wes was at the left 45-degree angle position. Jordan Hill was in the post on the same side, on the strong side. The strong side is where the ball is. So Jordan Hill is basically facing Wes Johnson, and Jeremy is over on the right 15 degrees of the top of the arc. So either Wes could pass the ball to Jeremy, who's wide open, or he could try to pass the ball into Jordan, who was calling for the ball. And he had a decision to make, and he chose to pass the ball to Jordan. Unfortunately, I think it was a turnover. So it probably would have been better had he passed the ball to Jeremy. Then Jeremy drew a foul on Utah big man Rudy Gobert. Gobert is a very noteworthy individual because he's gigantic. He's not a huge, massive man, but he's extremely, I think he's like 7'2", and he's got incredibly long arms. And he just affects the game, particularly in terms of blocking shots and altering shots because of how long his reach is. And he was doing that again tonight. He blocks some shots. He gets easy dunks because of how easy it is for him to dunk the ball. And he could be a real nice player in the league. He's developing. He's coming along. He's one of these guys that he has all these physical advantages, but he was very raw, just not very refined when he came into the league. But he's starting to figure it out. So keep an eye on him. Rudy Gobert came up to set a pick on Jeremy for, I believe, Trey Burke. But when he set the pick, he kind of tripped Jeremy. It looked like Jeremy twisted one of his legs or one of his ankles. Hopefully Jeremy was okay, and that was called an offensive foul against Rudy Gobert. Then Jeremy had his second assist of the game, which he passed the ball to Jordan Hill, and Jordan Hill hit a jump shot. So at the half, Lakers down 1. Jeremy had no points, 2 rebounds, and 1 assist, and he was 0 of 3 shooting from the field. I said, of the 2 halves, the first half was tougher for Jeremy, and the second half he was going to pick it up, which is nice to see. Early in the third, Jeremy had his second steal of the game, his second and final steal of the game. I didn't see it, so I can't really comment about it, but I know he got it. Then he had a defensive rebound. Then he scored on a layup in transition, I believe. And then I made a note that says the Utah scorekeepers are not giving Jeremy proper credit. So this is another play in there in which I thought Jeremy should have gotten an assist, and they didn't give it to him. So that was just some scorekeepers are different than others. Scorekeepers are associated with teams, and they are associated with arenas. So I can't remember what the name of where the Utah Jazz play at right now. I know it used to be the Delta Center, and it's no longer that. So certain scorekeepers will be like, "Oh yeah, the guys at Staples Center, they're really harsh. They just don't give guys many assists and stuff." So maybe the Utah scorekeepers have this reputation. I don't know, but I know they were not giving Jeremy a lot of favorable scorekeeping. Okay, which, look, that's fine as long as you do that for everybody. But if you're not very generous to the opposing team and you're really generous to your team, it just doesn't look good. You look like you're biased. Okay, then Jeremy had his third and final turnover of the night. This was again early in the third. I didn't see it. It was on a pass that was intercepted, so I didn't get to see actually any of the 3 Lin turnovers tonight. This was the only other turnover he had after the first 4 minutes of the game. So I'm not going to get too whatever on him, because this, to me, if I recall the context in which the turnover took place, it was an aggressive turnover. In other words, Jeremy was trying to make things happen, and he was in a groove. You can live with that type of turnover. What you don't want to see is turnovers that just don't have to happen. When you're kind of playing slow, or you make a pass you don't need to make, and you're just like setting up the offense and you're not really going that fast, those are avoidable turnovers. If you're scoring and you're getting assists and you're running transition and you get a couple turnovers, that's not a big deal because you're pushing the pace. Jeremy, at this point in the game, was pushing the pace. So I don't really have a problem with that turnover. And so like I said, he didn't make any bad turnover mistakes after the first 4 minutes of the game. So, okay, even though the stats don't look great, it really wasn't bad. Then Jeremy had another score. He did the move where he stops lets a defender go by, then he pivots backwards, pivots around, and then shoots a fadeaway jump shot. He did that from the right free throw line, and he made it. And it was a nice move. Jeremy knows that's one of his patented moves, and it works pretty well. Then he played good defense against Trey Burke. He contested a Trey Burke three-point attempt from the right corner, which Trey missed. And then around this time, I went to Twitter and put on JLin is flying all over the court in the third quarter for the Lakers. So as bad as he was, as much as he struggled in the first half, now he was all over it. He was making plays all over the place, really helping the Lakers and taking charge of the game. Particularly if you're going to play the style that Jeremy likes to play, which is the Mike D'Antoni point guard role. You are in charge of everything on offense. Now he's not playing that because that's not Byron's system. But when Jeremy takes over a game like he was doing here and trying to do, then you need to do everything on offense. You need to be everywhere. You need to be making good decisions. And I thought that he was doing that here. Whereas in the first half, there were moments where he was trying to take over, but he wasn't doing it well. Well, here he was taking over and he was doing it well. So this is it. This is it's almost like you have a blender that's got 4 settings. You have to find the right speed, the right setting. In the first half, Jeremy didn't have the right setting. In the second half, he had the right setting. He had the right mode. And that's it. And that's what we want to see. Then I put Jeremy on fire. Halftime talk? Question mark. In other words, did Byron say something to him? I don't know what happened, but now he's playing incredible. He's all over the place. He's everywhere. And then right after I wrote that, Jeremy had another nice defensive play against Trey Burke in which he stopped another Trey Burke shot attempt in which Trey was driving along the right baseline, and Jeremy was all over him, which resulted in a missed shot. Then Jeremy made another play where he saved the ball from going out of bounds, and right after he made the save, he drove to the hoop, got hit by a big man from Utah, went up, took a short little runner shot. He missed that shot. He wanted the foul, but he didn't get it. But still, he's being super aggressive in a good way, in a productive way. Then he had another assist for a foul. This time, passed the ball into Ed Davis. Ed was driving to the basket. Ed was fouled, and Ed got 2 free throws on that. So it doesn't show up as an assist, but it basically was an assist. Heading late into the third, Jeremy missed a long jump shot that was contested. That was his 5th miss of the game. At that point, the score was 60-57. And then Utah kind of started to break the game open a little bit. The lead with Jeremy's surge in the third, he had cut the lead down, I believe, 2 points. Now it was 3 points, and pretty soon after that, it was 6 points. And at that point in time, Byron called a timeout and substituted Jeremy out. And I thought Byron was correct in how he handled Jeremy in the third quarter here. He knew Jeremy was doing well, so he left him in almost 9 minutes, or actually more than 9 minutes in the third quarter. And he only took him out when Utah started making their own run. And at that point in time, get Jeremy a rest. If his unit's losing a little effectiveness, well, rest him. When you get a chance to rest him, rest him. So I thought that Byron handled things very well in the third quarter with Jeremy. Okay. Jordan Clarkson came in for Jeremy, and this is when I was saying that this is the point in time in which Gordon Hayward was taking over. He was basically doing what Jeremy was doing earlier in the quarter, but he was doing it for Utah, and he was doing it even a little bit more. Gordon's probably about 6'6", 6'7". He's a good shooter. He's a streaky shooter. He's a slashing type of player. He's similar to Jeremy, but he's taller. He likes to get out on the break. He likes to go to the basket, look for dunks, set up passes off of his drives, take the three-pointers when they're available, and he started getting into a good rhythm. And like I said, Lakers didn't really have anybody that could slow him down very well there, and because of that, Utah started to pull away more and more. The score got up to 68-59 for Utah, so that was a 9-point advantage. Remember, it had gotten cut down to 2 points, but the Lakers were able to kind of cut that down by 2 more points, just a 7-point deficit as we got to the end of the third. So basically that quarter was Jeremy makes a run, Gordon Hayward answers with his own run. That's essentially what that 12 minutes was. Okay, moving on into the fourth. Started out well with Nick Young hitting a 3-point basket to cut the lead down to 70-66. At this point on the court for the Lakers were Jordan Clarkson, Nick Young, Ryan Kelly, Carlos Boozer, and Tariq Black. So this is who it was. Then I put Trey Burke is now heating up. So Trey Burke, who, again, is the point guard, he was starting to find his shot. He was using screens to find his shots, much in the same way that Damian Lillard uses screens for Portland. He can get his own shots, but he's even better when you run him off of screens. And that's what Utah started doing for Trey, and it was working pretty well. So that again pushed the lead back up to 9, but now the Lakers were answering it. They cut the lead down to 5 points, and then they cut it down to 3 points. So it was 75-72 Utah as we were still early on in the fourth quarter. Then Jordan made he drove really hard to the basket, but he was just out of control. And this is what I'm saying. This is the type of play you will often see from younger players. They're trying to do something. They want to do something so bad, and they just try to do a little bit too much, which is the reason why many rookies don't play a lot of minutes, because they tend to make these types of mistakes, and the coaches know it, and they want to kind of let them grow into some calmness or steadiness with their playing. Byron left Jordan in after that play for a little bit more time, so it's kind of good. I mean, you don't always want to pull young players out whenever they make mistakes. But Utah started to stretch the league a little bit. They got it back to 8 points, but then the Lakers cut it down to 5 points again, 80-75, and then I put Jordan Clarkson, nice defense, and with 6 minutes and 32 seconds left, you then saw Jeremy begin to walk towards the scorer's table, which is where you go to check in before you come back into the game. Then Jordan had a drive against Rudy Gobert, and he missed it. That was a little bit of a reckless drive. Not terrible. It's just, again, Gobert is so difficult to drive against because of his length. He doesn't really have to do anything, and he can make you miss. With 5 minutes and 58 seconds left, Jeremy came back into the game. At that point, the score was 80-75 as well, so that hadn't changed in a little bit, maybe 40 seconds there. The lineup now for the Lakers was Jeremy, Nick, Ryan Kelly, Carlos Boozer, and Jordan Hill. Nick hit a three-pointer, which cut the lead down to 2 points, so this game was close in the fourth quarter, as I mentioned before. Then Burke hit a three while being guarded by Nick Young. Then Nick was fouled while attempting a three-pointer. He hit 3 free throws. That cut the lead 83-81 with 4 minutes and 57 seconds left. Then Utah, I don't remember which player it was. Might have been Inglis. He hit a three-pointer against Carlos Boozer. That put the score back up to 86-81 for the Jazz. Then the Lakers hit a basket. That cut the lead back down to 3 points. I thought that Tariq Black was going to come into the game, but I believe that he did not come into the game. Then heading into the late in the fourth quarter, there was some incident between Ellis Kanter and Nick Young. Nick Young got a technical on that incident, and they hit the technical, did Utah. That made the score 87-83. So it had been a 3-point game. Now it was a 4-point game. Then Utah scored again, which made it 89-83 on a 6-point deficit for the Lakers. Then Jeremy missed his sixth attempt of the game, or he had his sixth miss. He took a long three-pointer from about 35 degrees right at the top of the arc, and it was very deep. It's probably about 5 to 6 feet behind the line. My guess is that it was low in the shot clock, and he had to take it, but I don't know that because I don't remember the clock at that point in time. Then I put that it was a tough defensive play for Jeremy. Trey Burke got by him on the dribble. The defense had to react to it, and then Trey kicked the ball out to, I can't remember who, for a three-pointer. So Trey didn't hit the three against Jeremy, but because he was able to beat Jeremy off the dribble, that opened up the shot. And so this is part of the reason why you have to be careful, and you really want to try to contain your man from getting by you off the dribble. Okay, then Jeremy had a blown assist. He avoided a turnover. And this is where I said earlier that Jeremy had a nice decision-making play later in the game where he didn't hurry a pass. Jeremy stopped dribbling the ball. He picked up his dribble. Utah, the defender, came right up on him to kind of try to make it hard for him to pass. And then both of the men he wanted to pass to were defended quite well. So this is a type of situation in the past where Jeremy would get a turnover. But he was patient. He stayed calm. He waited until someone opened up. Wesley cut to the basket. Jeremy hit him with a pass. And Wesley went up for a shot that was a pretty good shot. Unfortunately, he released the ball from his hands right after the shot clock went off. So it was a good idea. And Jeremy executed properly there. It just... They needed like one more second on the clock, and it would have been okay. At that point in time, the score was 92-83 for Utah. So Utah was pulling away a bit here. The Lakers are falling apart a little bit. And I think fatigue was catching up to them at this point in time. They're just getting tired, the altitude and the back-to-back. And Utah was playing well, so give them credit. Then I put Jeremy pokes the ball away from Trey Burke. So Trey Burke was literally standing there just waiting for time to go off the clock, kind of surveying the situation and telling his team where to go. And Jeremy's like, no, I'm going to interrupt that. I'm going to mess you up. I'm going to poke the ball. That's what you got to do. And like I said, it can sometimes look silly. This is, the Patrick waving his hands and all this, but it interferes with what the offensive player is trying to do. So sometimes you need to do that to just kind of throw them off balance. And that's what happened. Then Nick missed a three-point shot. Then Jeremy on the next possession had a nice little step-back jump shot from the free throw line, left part of the free throw line. He shot the ball over Gordon Hayward. It was a terrific move. It was a really nice one-on-one move where Jeremy really faked Gordon out, got some separation, stepped back, hit the shot, and then finally, Jeremy had his seventh and final miss of the game, very close to the end of the game here. It was from the kind of the left middle of the post area extended. So if you halfway down the left part of the lane, if you drew a line out from that, that's about where Jeremy was. And he just missed a shot, but it was really of no consequence then, as there was basically too little time for the Lakers to do anything. And so we went into the end of the game, and Utah got the victory 94-85. Moving on into post-game information quickly, I guess I heard after the game that Byron Scott said that Jeremy does need to involve everybody on offense as a point guard. We've heard him say that before. And that's essentially, in my interpretation, don't be Mike D'Antoni point guard, just move the ball around a little bit more. To be fair, Jeremy was much better about that in the second half. And look, Byron's just kind of trying to stay on him, like a tough love, keep working on it type of a thing. And one of the reporters tried to get Byron, I guess, to say something negative about Jeremy's turnovers. I didn't hear the question. I just saw these quotes. And Byron didn't go for it. So he's basically like, no, it wasn't just Jeremy. It was everybody. We all turned the ball over. So I'm glad that Byron didn't take a cheap shot there at Jeremy. It seemed like that's what the reporter wanted him to do, and he resisted doing it. Okay, so that's about it for this game. Again, I'm okay with this game. I wish Jeremy would have performed better, that he got the opportunity to start. I understand why it was a difficult situation for him and for the team on the back-to-back, shorthanded, and playing at altitude. So let's move on to the next game. And that game will take place this upcoming Monday in the United States, so it's 3 days away. Saturday and Sunday are off. And it will be on January 19th, Monday, in the USA at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, against the Phoenix Suns in Phoenix, Arizona. In the United States, that game will be shown on TNT television. I don't know, again, I would imagine it's still also on Time Warner Cable Sportsnet, but I don't know. I think some of the, no, I take that back. I think when the games are national, like TNT or ESPN, or at least some of them, then the Time Warner Cable crew does not call the games. Like, so Bill McDonald and Stu Lance would not call the games. I'm not certain. I do know it's on TNT here in the United States. I would imagine that it's also on International League Pass, but I don't know how they work in terms of television networks and such. So, look, hopefully the Lakers get a win in that game. I would think that Kobe will play that game if he's feeling okay, as I would imagine would Ronnie Price, but we will find out. Phoenix is a good team. They're fighting for a playoff spot. They're right now in the 8th spot in the West, trying to hold off Oklahoma City. Phoenix, we've seen them before. We know what they do. They like to push the ball and move up tempo. They've gotten better since the last time the Lakers played them because they added Brandon Wright, who is a backup power forward at center. And it's going to be a tough game. Certainly Phoenix will be favored. Like I said, let's go out and see what we can do. That's the type of opponent in which Jeremy can look good on offense because it's a transition type game, although the Suns do have two good shot blockers in Alex Len and Miles Plumlee. So you have to be careful at the rim because those guys will swat your shot. Particularly, well, actually both of them. Alex Len's very, very good at it, but if Phoenix is pushing the ball and you get them, they miss, then you can get fast breaks before the defender and the shot blocker can get back. Okay, that is it for now. Your thoughts below, thumbs up, thumbs down. We will include in the video description below the video player information so you can find out about the artist who made this great artwork you're looking at. His name is Gary Chen. He is an artist, as I said, and a blogger in Taiwan. You can find out his information about his Facebook in the video description. Also, highlights for this game, information how you can come and join the Conservative Media Facebook group. Also, information how you can come and check us out on Twitter. We'd love to have you come follow us there. We talk to everybody about basketball, other sports, and just about everything. Again, I am PFE Paul F. Villarreal, the NBA expert. Thanks a lot for watching Conservative Media. We strive to be the #1 Jeremy Lin YouTube fan channel. Look, it's just a tough game. Again, a schedule loss, not unexpected. Let's move on, get a couple of days of rest for the team, hopefully get a little healthier, and Jeremy can kind of look at the game film and just see what he wants to do, and let's prepare for Phoenix, and hopefully Jeremy and the team will come out, put their best foot forward here on Monday. That's it for now. Take care. We'll talk to you again soon. Have a great night, a great day, wherever you are around the world when you watch this video.